I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Build an Iconic Life. I'm here with Dr. Ryan Hewitt from North Andover, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with me. I don't really know what we're going to talk about.
The best way to go.
We were just having probably about an hour-long conversation about life, and you know, one of the things that I resonate with you being a chiropractor is you take a really holistic approach to life. Did you always?
Let me think about that. Did I always? Definitely not.
Okay.
That's a good place for me to introduce my chiropractic story, I would say.
Okay.
So I'm in my early 20s. I'm just getting to a point where hockey is, I'm very passionate about hockey. I'm playing a high level of hockey, but only to the degree of what I'm able to do in sort of men's league, lower junior type of hockey.
Yep.
And I'm also bartending at nights. I'm going to school, but floundering in school because I have no purpose, no place to go. I'm there so I can continue to live in my parents' house, essentially. And I get hit from behind and I smash my head into the boards, right? And I lose feeling in my legs for, I don't even know how long. It was a matter of seconds, but I'll never forget it because of the panic that set in after that experience, right? I don't know if you ever lost feeling in limbs before, but it's something that you never want to experience. I was fortunate enough to regain the feeling and be able to get off the ice, but wasn't really the same the rest of the day. What had happened is I sustained a significant trauma to my spinal cord. It wasn't just to my neck. It was kind of my whole spine. There was some twisting going on. And I didn't discover the damage I'd done till the next morning when I woke up. So I had a hard time getting out of bed. I remember my father had to help me get out of bed. Of course, we go to the emergency room, right? So I'm from Midwest Canada, and socialized healthcare, to some might sound like a dream who live in the US here. I can tell you right now, there's just less of it, and it's less expensive because you pay significantly through your taxes. But that's beside the point. So we're there for a little while, and I finally get seen. And of course, what do they give me? They give me some Flexerol, pat me on the butt and say, it'll just get better over time. And of course, over the next weeks after that, I don't find myself able to really be able to do what I was doing before in the weight room, or I didn't have the confidence to get back on the ice. So I was in a real bad spot. Yeah.
You were hit that hard that it shook your confidence on the ice.
Yes. So.
And you'd been playing since you were 8 years old?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm in my early 20s at this point. So this is where God, I know, played a part in my life, because this is when I met my first chiropractor, weeks after this. And it was at a career resource organized event. And I'm studying the Faculty of Science because that's always where my strengths were. It was science, biology, anatomy, human physiology. So I was always fascinated with the human body. I was into sports, athletics, all that stuff. So it was a natural fit. So I meet this guy, and he's doing health screenings for the Manitoba Chiropractic Association. And I meet him, and I don't know, can I swear on this?
Yeah. We say fuck.
I don't know who the fuck, I don't even know what the fuck a chiropractor is, right? I'm in my early 20s. I've never even really understood I didn't even know a chiropractor was a doctor. Anyway, so I meet this guy. I'm like, what are you doing? What is this? And he has a conversation with me and finds out about where I'm at. So I learn about what chiropractic is, but the thing that changed my life is he invited me for an opportunity to become a patient of his. Just get a checkup, see if there's something he could do to help me. And of course, I don't even know why I made the decision to go see him. I just think it was supposed to happen. So I become a patient of his, and he gets me back to playing hockey, getting back to the weight room, because it's really important to me. And changed my life. And the thing that he did that I know God had a hand in is he started introducing me to some of his patients. knowing that he could have an influence on my direction and where I was going, because you could tell I was struggling as well. And I started talking to his patients, and they're telling me about these journeys of like lifelong migraines that they were able to get help with, and like veterans that were suicidal that, you know, have hope now, and like people that had these neuropathies that were just detrimental and they were getting off drugs. I was like, oh my God, like
this is you going from being a patient to him inviting you to meet other patients because he sees something that he thinks might be a spark in you.
Yes.
Dude, it's
powerful, right?
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. It was, you know, I look back at it, I'm so grateful. Like, of course, at the time you don't know
right.
This is unfolding. And so I just so happened to be studying in the Faculty of Science. I just so happened to be doing pre-med studies, which is all the prereqs to go to chiropractic school. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get my shit together, because I have a 2.0 GPA at this point. I'm like, did I fuck myself permanently? Am I even going to be able to do this? So come to find out, it's like, yeah, if you just pull your pants up in these courses, if you do these ones, then you have a chance. So, you know, I start to apply myself, and I'm like all of a sudden getting, you know, 4.0s and all this stuff. And I get into chiropractic school, and the rest is history. So yeah, was that the question you asked me? I don't even remember where I went with that, but it was like, how did I become holistic?
Yeah.
Not until that. And even when I went to chiropractic school, I still didn't have the whole perspective of really looking at the human body from all angles, but it was my first introduction to a different way, a new way, a better way.
And so what's the progression? You get through chiropractic school, you start practicing, right? You're building a business at the same time, which is very different than becoming a chiropractor. Like the business is not, that's the fun part.
Yeah.
But in seeing patients, what leads you to become more and more driven or holistic centered? And because I think people give that a bad rap sometimes, not as much now.
Yeah, the word triggers me a little bit.
Yeah,
holistic. Because you could buy holistic foot baths and holistic pillows, and like, what does it even
marketing
mean? What does it even mean?
Right.
Same with the word wellness, right? Yeah, people don't really know what it means.
But what I hear is you're becoming more compassionate for the actual gift that you're giving someone that's suffering.
Right.
Because you're helping people. Why did you lean more and more that direction? Why didn't you go more profit centered and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, I think it starts earlier than that. I mean, in chiropractic school is really where a lot of my perspectives and beliefs were challenged. Okay. So about health, about a lot of things. And it was because I chose to get uncomfortable, because what I knew I wanted, I was like, so I found my path. I want to be the best possible chiropractor, right? That I can be. So I start visiting chiropractors that I deem as them being, you know, incredible doctors and really strong leaders and whatnot. And I observe them, and I look and see, and they have a particular perspective of chiropractic, and it is this more vitalistic. I like
vitalistic.
Okay. And by vitalistic, I mean it's more of a natural or inside out approach. It's like God has given you all of the things that you need to heal and to express vitality and health. It's just about you just getting out of the way. And chiropractic is a way for you to help people get out of their own way, right? Through better movement, through better, habits and all that type of stuff. So I see these chiropractors, not only are they more of a vitalistic type of practitioner, but in other ways, they're more in control of their own destiny by being business owners, right? They're not chiropractors that are working for other people. So I'm like, well, I want to be this type of holistic, if you will, or vitalistic family chiropractor that sees, you know, multiple walks of people of all walks of life that are also business owners. So I started visiting different chiropractors, and they're the ones that started to influence the way I wanted to become. And I started to see in chiropractic school a lot of the deficiencies I had, right? One of them was like, my whole life, all I was around was just employees. My father was an employee, my mother's an employee, all of my friends, their parents were all employees. Everybody I knew worked for somebody. There was only one guy I knew, go get this, one guy I knew who had a dad who owned a business. He lived in the wealthiest part of Winnipeg, where I'm from. And I remember one day learning that his dad was paying someone else to change a flat tire for him.
You thought that was crazy?
All my friends and I are like, what a pussy.
Oh, yeah.
He can't change his own fucking tire. like, what's wrong with this guy? He's not a man. Right. And these are some of the beliefs that I'm seeing in myself, right, and that are being challenged by, new paths, right?
Mhm.
I come to find out it's like, oh, well, he just didn't have time because he was too busy, like, crushing it.
Yeah, making money.
Making money. Yeah. So my beliefs started to become exposed as far as like the way I thought about health, but also the way I thought about, business and, that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Beyond makes sense. And I have like 18 relatable stories. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you on the podcast, because I relate to a lot of your experiences from different ways. I grew up in Southern Virginia, so it's the South, and there's a lot of blue collar. There's a lot of do it yourself. There's a lot of, and in New England, I find the same mentality a lot. Like it's the Yankee ingenuity to do things, and I respect it. I grew up that way, but what I found is every job that I had, there was a maximum I could make. And I heard this thing about sales where you could make your own living and your own ceiling for money. But I found that also to be riddled with corporate dogma and gamemanship and all this stuff. And so my dad lived in Northern Virginia. And although he worked for the State Department and then eventually became the president of a privatized company, and he built it up to like $40 million, he never owned it. And the son of so the man that hired him knew he was dying, and his wife and his son were working in the company as well. The son was the VP. Dad built it to $40 million. And when right before it was retirement age, and for him to get his stocks out of it, they just let him go.
Wow.
In some ways, it kind of messed up a lot of stuff. Well, it just so happened that Dad would, at 15 or 16, I was going there every summer to live with Dad. He got me lawn mowing jobs. And I was making $35 mowing a lawn for 1 hour versus $3.50 being a lifeguard for an hour. I'll choose the lawn mowing. And then he got me cleaning a car, and I made $65 cleaning a car. And I actually enjoyed cleaning all the little spokes on the car. And next thing you know, I'm in college and I'm supposed to be a computer science person. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. And so some silly reason I decided to become a house builder. And it started off with being a painter, and here we are GCs now. And but it was this idea that I wanted to write my destiny, because I felt like everybody else had always written my destiny.
Right.
And I never knew it was going to be as hard. It's like literally one of the, besides being married, is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But it's been worth it. And it's allowed me to meet other people that are like-minded. And it's funny that we go through the same things sometimes in different forms. And what's even better is maybe you've gone through something that I haven't, but because we're on a similar path, I come, and if I'm vulnerable enough to ask you a question, you're like, oh, this is what I did to make that better. And it's like, then I go immediately apply it. Because one thing being an entrepreneur, you don't get to stay one if you don't do the work.
Right.
One of the things that I'm hearing you say, though, is as you're going through this process of learning how to be more vitalistic, which I like that word. It's cool.
Yeah.
It makes people pause and think for a second. Yeah. So I'm going to add that one and take the holistic one out. Right. Vitalistic. Thank you. I also know some of the struggles that brings you through growing up in the mentality of lack versus abundance. Oh, yeah. Would you talk a little bit about the dichotomy of choosing this trade that offers the opportunity for freedom, but at the same time, the mentality that's going, so it's like one's going here and the other is going here. It's like push pull.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go this way more than that way? Were you reading personal development books? Were you, I know the answer to this, because if you guys can't see, this guy's in shape. You pushed yourself. Yeah. Is the way you did it, right?
Well, I think I admitted this to you before, is like, if I do have one superpower, is that like, I'll bash my head against a brick wall if I know I can get through it. I could have just gone around it, but I told myself I could get through it, and I'm not going to stop until I actually be able to get through it. Right?
I'll make a hole.
Yes, I'll make a hole. Yeah. So I'll just do it until it's done. Which, there's pros and cons to that. So this all started from what I think at an early age was sports, right? I taught myself how to play hockey. I played soccer, I played lacrosse, I played baseball, and I was never like really great at any of these things, but I would like go out my backyard that had this is Midwest Canada, right? There's community rinks. You just go, they flood the rinks and clean them. And I would just freeze all my limbs, just trying to get better at hockey. Right. Mm-hmm. And I observed my father the same way. Like he worked his absolute nutsack off for my family, which is, I appreciate about him.
Sure.
So I watched his work ethic. I had it in myself. And I knew that if like I just kept at it, I would get better. And that's kind of the lessons I taught myself. Now, as far as how that applies to becoming a chiropractor and an entrepreneur, like the thing I never did was give up. But man, like I learned all the hard lessons.
What are some?
Like you said, well, the first ones that come to mind when you were saying that was that, one thing that I adopted observing my parents was that they had that, you used the word lack mentality or scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
So I absolutely had a big time scarcity mentality. And that's one thing that, I still fight that, you know what I'm saying?
Me too.
That never goes away.
Me too.
No matter what people think, like you can be as abundant as you think. And in fact, I try to use it to my benefit sometimes because it does light a fire under me sometimes, so because I'm terrified of going back there, you know what I mean? That scarcity mentality showed up in the way that I handled money, but also like the way that I handled my relationships, yep. The way that I, was an employee and how I operated in general. So that was one thing that I knew I had. And then the other thing too, and I remember these things being challenged right away because I started exposing myself to speakers and other success coaches, right? This is where sort of my personal development journey begins.
How old were you?
25. Yep, 25.
Okay.
This is when I start to learn that your business that you want to build becomes a reflection of who you are. And I'm starting to hear these things. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know. That's like airy fairy. I don't get that.
Yeah, these are two separate things.
Yeah. I'm like, what? So, but I start listening to guys and they're like, stop watching the news. It's filling your head with bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these concepts of like your mother, father, teacher, preachers, and the beliefs and the ways that you're thinking are because of these experiences and these people. And I start thinking about them. And one of the worst things I did is I went to an event once that started to like, it was the beginning of my journey, exposing myself to like, how am I getting in my own way? Like, how am I fucked up? And how can I break these barriers? Because I'm trying to I've been desperately trying to break the chains of who I was into who I want to become. And I start hearing stories that are just like atrocious stories. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that wasn't me. Like I didn't have that experience that, it could have been worse. It was the worst thing I told myself for a long time, because then I failed to realize, like, listen, the way you are right now is because of the way you're thinking. And it's because of the stories and experiences you had, like the scarcity mentality, like the victim mentality that I had, right? I was definitely at effect and not at cause at that point. And I was for a long time. And that's what held me back. Fortunately, I had that work ethic thing. So I could push through. And this is why I led my life by force for a long time before I gave up the wheel to God, to Jesus Christ, to where my life is going because of, who I am, you know what I mean? Rather than what I can do or what my ego can forge. So really chiropractic school was the life-changing experience, but it was only not because of my curriculum. Understand that. It had nothing to do with the school. It was all about the people that I started visiting and the events and speakers I started listening to.
Who was do you remember who the first speaker?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. The first speaker, I told you about the chiropractor that influenced me to become a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And I shared with you that there's really two different types of chiropractic out there. There's the vitalistic and holistic approach, where chiropractic is a way for you to experience the most life has to offer, because it allows you to experience optimal neurological function, which is how you perceive your universe and your surroundings. And having an optimized nervous system is something that, if you want, an optimal life, it's a piece of it, right? That's why I always say, anyone who wishes to be truly healthy needs a great chiropractor in their health team, right? Now, there's the other side of chiropractic, which is chiropractic's only good for pain. You should only go willy-nilly whenever you feel bad, and make sure your insurance pays for it, right? This chiropractor that sent me to chiropractic school was a vitalistic and type. And he had a coach named Charlie Ward. So this was one of the first guys that I started listening to, and he's telling all these things like stop watching the news, and he started exposing me to these like who you are determines how well what you do works, and the mother, father, teacher, preachers, and all this stuff. And
his first mentor, not even coach, a mentor up on stage going, here's how life works, and you actually leaned into it.
Yeah, I leaned into him. I never took him on as a mentor, but one of my first mentors I actually did a community-based internship with was in Bloomington, Minnesota.
Okay.
And then truly my first mentor that I worked for was why I came out to Massachusetts.
Okay.
Right. So his name is Stephen Franson, and he's built a big business beyond his brick and mortar at this point. But he's one of the first people that exposed me to like people, process, product, like business type of principles. But then also like he made me work my ass off. He's the one that showed me how to sell and how to market, right? Not really how to market, but he forced me to market.
Yeah.
And he showed me how to sell. So these were also, I had beliefs about these things, right? So sales, for example, to me was like used car salesman, an image in my head. Little did I realize, like I was a professional fishing guide, and I was just selling people all day long. And I was also a bartender, selling booze and selling experience. So I had this ability to like relate to people, talk to people, which lends itself real nice to sales.
Sure does.
It's just all about you understanding like, hey, well, this is going to make the experience for the customer more likely to say yes, so you can help change their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's sales in the best way. If you're a good salesperson, is you've heard what the people are asking for, and you're giving them a value-based approach in exchange for monetary, usually money, to let them have what you just said, the best experience they can have.
Yeah,
I don't see how chiropractic doesn't do that.
It 100% does. So, yeah, the sales, the marketing, and the business systems. I mean, this is why I took him on as a mentor, because I knew that this was how I was going to just trial by fire.
Yeah.
Just breathe it all in.
Yeah.
And have that experience of really just, being forced to get good at that, because that was all uncomfortable for me. It was all foreign. It was like learning a new language.
Have you ever heard of Radio Shack?
Of course.
So my first gig out of college was working at Radio Shack, and I found that I was a very good salesperson.
Yep.
And I was invited along with the district manager and all the managers to go listen to this guy speak. And I was the only guy that was a sales guy that was invited out of like 12 people. So I was honored. Never seen anybody speak on stage before. The guy's name was Brian Tracy. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, eat that frog.
That dude was 6'5".
He was a monster.
He was in his 60s then, and I was in my 20s. He's still alive, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
But he was a mountain of a human being. And I'm listening to him the whole time. And there were two thoughts that I had. Number one, I want to be like him when I grow up. I want to do what he's doing. Like he's influencing me, and I can feel him changing me. And number two, he gave me a test, and he gave everybody a test. He said, I want you to write 12 things down, and I want you to fold that piece of paper up, put it in your pocket. You don't ever have to look at it again. I promise you within 3 months, you will have accomplished at least one of those goals. I was like, okay, I'm just going to believe. That was the key for me. Yeah. And I think for everyone, do you believe what I'm telling you? And one of them was to win a golf tournament. My girlfriend at the time worked at a restaurant, and they had a Stableford golf tournament, which means it's tiered. I happened to win it because I don't think anyone else at that restaurant played golf, but I did win. And it also taught me that I wasn't very specific in what that goal was. But here's what's funny. I played baseball all my life. Then I played golf. Pretty physical guy all my life. I went to shake Brian Tracy's hand, and it felt like he ripped my arm out from the shoulder. He was in his 60s, and the way he shook my hand was like, that was a man. Yeah. Dude, I was, whoever this human being is, he's got the knowledge. He's got power that I don't know. And it was the belief that maybe my life could be a little bit different. And I've never stopped ever since. Wow. Never stopped. And I feel like that's exactly what you're saying. It's like you hopped from experience to experience, mentor to mentor, whether it's from stage and you hired them or whether you worked for them. It's almost like you found the next person. Yeah. And here's the other cool thing. A lot of people think that when they get a coach, they're supposed to keep that coach. I think you grow through your coaches. Yeah. And where has it led you to since?
Yeah. And just to add to that, I was like, you have to seek them out. Like, there was never anyone who told me like, hey, Ryan, you got to go seek out a coach or a mentor, or like go find out somebody who's doing something the way you want to do it and go follow them and be like them. It's like, no one told me that. I just sort of like figured that was like the logical thing to do. Cause I mean, I think from a very early age, I decided like I had a paper route when I was 10 years old, like, and my dad got up half the time and did it for me, you know? So, but you know, I had jobs and I was an earner, and I knew I wanted this independence. I wanted to forge my path. But like Stephen was like my mentor who exposed me to all those business principles and whatnot. Right. And he really launched myself into what it's like to be a chiropractor that has a significant impact on his community. Because at this point, his practice when I joined he was seeing like 1,000 visits in his office a week. There's 4 practitioners in there, and he's just like, this guy just
moving.
Yeah. So he had a serious business, this is why I wanted to learn from him. Right.
Sure.
It had nothing to do with like, hey, he sees 1,000 people a week, but he, not only that, he like, I could tell he was a man of integrity. Like, he was the first guy that I ever saw. He's married with children. He has an incredible marriage. And he's got this incredible business. He's a spiritual guy and he's in shape. I'm like, holy shit, man, this guy like has figured it out. He's cracked the code. But I want to be like him. Right?
Yeah.
But of course, like, it's a short-lived experience when you meet a woman who wants you to become more than who you think you need to be.
Robin's that for me, and I didn't appreciate it at all for a long time.
And when I met Kendra, like, my life changed forever. But at the time, it's like, when you start dating, and I was like, this girl is different. Like, I know that this is the girl who I want to be with. And it's like, I can feel, it's like, I don't know, soulmate, is this real? Like, is that a real thing? But the challenge at the time is like, I'm Canadian, I'm working for someone. It's that, I have a visa because I'm working for this person. So the only way forward, if I'm going to make that step, is to ask this woman to marry me. So it was like, almost like, it was a weird, like almost arranged marriage. She kind of knew it was coming. It's like, we got to make this logical step. So we get married. We do a justice of the peace, like, just her mother, my mother, and her grandmother. And it was special. We did a wedding the year after, but that was, my wife has been my biggest cheerleader, supporter, and influence of my entire life, and still is. So really, like, she entered my life at a time where that was the only way I was going to ever break free from, I guess, my employee mentality, because I was comfortable at the time, right? I was working for someone. I was like, I know I want to start a business, but I don't know how. I always get stuck in the, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how. It's just like, it's almost like I sedate in that, like, I don't know. Right. And I just didn't see a way past that unless I moved home back to Canada and whatnot. So the plan was get married, start a business with my wife, and then, we launch into this entrepreneurial journey together, which is one of the worst things you can do when you decide you want to marry somebody, is like, hey, let's start a business together. How fucking stupid was that? So, her and I working together, like, it worked and it didn't. Right.
Sure.
Because she was forever being patient with my growth as a doctor, as a human, as a husband, as, a business owner. And it took me a long time to wake up, to be honest with you. And because at the same time, I'm like, well, I want to be this significant guy too, who's like really in shape. So I start, CrossFitting at almost like a professional athlete level. We're talking like 2 to 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I'm sedating with CrossFit and not spending enough time in my business or in my marriage. And that went on for a long time till my body broke, right? Until my, business was failing, my marriage was failing. So that was the crux of my life in my mid to late 30s. So you're saying, like, who is my next mentor? My next mentor was a guy named Garrett White.
Yeah.
And Garrett White came to me at the lowest pit of my life. And he spoke to me because I related to his stories. He was in the same place, right? His businesses were burning. His marriage was burning. He was at a low point where, like, sometimes suicide seems like a good idea. Like you're probably not going to do it, but like you think about it, you're sedating with like alcohol and all that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
I was there.
In pain.
Yeah, I was in deep pain, right? And it's at that point where I'm still at effect in my life, not a cause. Where I'm still struggling in that, victim mentality. And I wasn't talking to anybody. Like I didn't have any friends that I was like, hey, Chris, like, this is what's going on. This is how I'm fucking up. This is where my business is at. Like, cause it's like,
did you think that you would be judged?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, of course. Because people see this thing on the outside. It's like my business looks kind of successful. Like I'm in this in shape guy. Like my wife and I together, we look like, a pretty attractive couple, and we have a house together, and like everything looks like we got
building
our
the ego,
together.
building the ego,
Yeah.
building the ego.
Yeah, it looks like we got our shit together. But on the inside, it's like nothing is going, like every day is not going good to a degree. So Garrett was my mentor when it came to like just like getting in the understanding that like you fucking pussy, you're the reason.
Yeah, he whipped you into shape by giving you the hard discipline.
At that point, Chris, I had already done Navy SEAL camps. I had already done half Ironman triathlons. I'd already done CrossFit competition. I'd already like whipped myself into submission.
But he brought spirituality into it, I bet.
So I had like, I was getting tattoos. I was doing these physical beat downs. Like I didn't realize it, but what I was trying to do is I was trying to separate from my ego.
Yeah.
And trying to like find out like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah. I know this feeling well.
I went to an experience called Warrior Week. This is when I met a guy named Coach Sam Falsafi and Garrett White in person. And like looking them in the face and having them and exposing every little detail about me that is like as uncomfortable as you can possibly imagine.
Did you meet Adam Smith?
No, but I know who he is.
Okay. He's spoken for me on stages before.
Yeah, Adam's powerful.
All those guys are. I've never done Warrior Week. I don't know if I want to do Warrior Week.
You don't want to.
No, but
it'll change who you are.
It's intense, huh?
Yeah, but it wasn't intense physically. Like it was.
Yeah, well, I don't
like we do.
I don't think much can be any more physically intense to you. You pushed yourself to like the whole David Goggins level of shit. You know?
Yeah, but my point was like that doesn't break me. Like it does. I've been to degrees. Like I'll do long endurance races and I'll feel like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but I had to expose myself from a mental, emotional standpoint, like I'd never had in my life.
Yeah. Did you do the letter thing?
Two other men, all of it. Yeah.
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 So so they take you physically here, and then they're like, by the way, you're going to do this now, and then tomorrow we're going to reveal this, and so it's constantly.
It's constant exposure. Constant exposure. So, and they got me to a place where I was finally in submission to, my ego and who I am.
Was God in your life at this point?
No.
Yeah.
No. Because I didn't have that guidepost.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that all roads lead eventually to you finding your higher power.
Yeah.
You keep going. This is beautiful, dude. This is a beautiful story.
Yeah. So, and of course, like at that point, I've done so much damage that I'm still like, I'm in the storm. I've admitted some things to my wife. I've like exposed myself to other men and really, become vulnerable. And what that does is it allows you to get that weight off your chest. And like, hey, and what you find out, Chris, is like, oh, you did that too.
Yeah, right.
No shit.
Right.
And there's just so many people that just hide from all that stuff. And here's what I realized is that lies, they matter, right? When you live with lies, and you tell yourself like, I can just compartmentalize and just leave it and it'll just go away. Like maybe it will go away is the 5 most dangerous words that, as a
chiropractor, that doesn't happen.
With symptoms, it doesn't work. Right.
But men, especially men go, that happened then.
Yeah.
I'm done with that.
Yeah. So all of these things were coming up in my life because I was lying. Okay. So, but here's the thing is like, okay, so I'm telling the truth. I've exposed myself and like my wife didn't divorce me. Okay, thank God. So, and now it's time to rebuild. And like that rebuild doesn't happen in 2 weeks, right? So this is 2018. And then 2018, onwards, like I'll just tell you, like 2018 to now, like my business has tripled. We started 2 other companies, like, you know, we have a daughter.
Yeah.
Like it's huge.
Yeah.
So like, but here's the crazy part is like without without that experience, without me failing and hitting that pit and using that as fuel and moving forward, like none of that happens, right? None of that shit happens. So it's like I have to look back and figure, like, I'm grateful for that,
Yeah.
but like, would I go through that again? Like you said, it's like, I don't know, man.
It's why-
it was worth it,
Yeah.
but it's like, fuck, I don't know. If I'd do
And
that
here's
again.
the thing, you're going to apply that to when you're 92 and look back what
Right.
you did go through with it. And so that's the gauntlet that I love to see in heroes, and no ego building. Truly, to me, a hero is somebody that has chosen a purpose and will not quit on that purpose no matter what.
Right.
And I resonate with it. I see it in other people, and what it becomes is inspiring for all of us as humans to see somebody pay that price. Because if you ask me if I would go through it, no, why would I choose to go through that?
Right.
But what it's that gratitude that you were getting ready to start emoting
Oh yeah.
because you're feeling it.
Yeah.
So much so I was feeling it. Don't you want to live the rest of your life with that kind of feeling?
100%, man.
I want my kids to know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want my wife to know that.
Right.
I don't want to have to tell her for her to know that. I want the results to prove I actually mean that I love you, because I actually know what that means now, because I love me. Because all I hear you saying is you just learned how to accept you for who you are.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, we'll probably be spending the rest of this life figuring out how to do more of that.
Every day.
And that was 1 week that you did that.
Right.
To make,
but that's when the work started, right?
and then this work, and that's the thing. Was Kendra immediately like, oh, he's changed?
No.
Yeah, Robin was not quite like that.
No. I don't think anybody of sound mind would like be that way, right? So it took a lot of time to produce evidence to myself first, and then evidence to prove to my wife, like, okay, things are different, right? Like, not only just you know, with me as a husband, but also me as a leader in my business, right? Me as somebody who is you know, understanding the role fitness plays in my life in a non-pathological way, like as like a healthy part of like who I am, right? And I'm grateful I had done what I did, because I can lead with a lot of lessons in body. It's kind of like my conversation that I have with people is a lot of times about health and body. It's, of course, I'm a healthcare professional, right? It's like how I built, you know, my life around at this point, but it's so much bigger than that, right? Which is why, you know, fitness is so incredible, because it's like, in a lot of cases for men, it's like a first step you can take to start taking responsibility, right?
Well, and I think it also gives you immediate feedback where the intellectual pursuit, even the spiritual pursuit, doesn't give you at first.
True.
Even if you're not showing the abs yet, you know they hurt.
Yeah, you can still see the scale go down a pound.
Yeah,
right. You can still see those objective evidences, right? But you're right. It's like, hey, when I start taking my wife out on a date every week now, and I'm committed to doing that, I've done it for 2 months. It's like, you know, am I having sex with her more? Like, no, not yet.
Right.
Fuck.
Right.
This isn't working.
Right.
Right. But it's different. It's like, oh, I've been training for 2 months. I've been eating properly. Like, I'm down 10 pounds.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, the evidence doesn't always happen overnight.
But the small wins, and I believe in stacking.
Oh yeah.
Like, one of the first things I do is, number one, help clients get rid of what they don't want. Just let me have it. Yeah. All right. So now can we start filling the balloon up with what you do want? And then what's the smallest thing that we can take from that to go get you a quick win? Because that response builds itself over and over again.
Right.
How long? So Garrett was 2017. That's when you started turning.
2018. Yeah.
2018. Okay.
2018 is when I went to Warrior Week. Yes.
Okay. And then how long before, and you probably gave a lot of, like, just knowing your personality type, when you decided to do this with Kendra, especially, like, you went all in, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Year? Did it take a year for you to start seeing significant results with her, or less time?
That's a great question. I don't know if I could give you like an accurate answer. I think that within that year, I started to see results with our marriage.
The softening, at least the hard edges started going away a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Let me see if I can give you like an example of when I started to see the results. I think that before then, like date night had never been a conversation. It just kind of happened organically.
Yeah.
I think her starting to see me plan, that was big, right? Because I would plan out these fucking intensive workouts and like I'm gonna do the 6-month like plan, and I would even start to plan in business to a degree, but she would never see a plan in our marriage, right?
Yeah.
So when she started to see me do some planning when it came to at least like dates and like these little things I started to do, like deposits. So her love language is deposits, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so once she saw me start to do that, it took a couple of months, but then I saw her just even start to speak and look at me a little bit differently, right? It was just like these little tiny things. And for us, it was always just like, it was always sex, right? And that, to me, that's something I can really tangibly measure. Like how many times we have sex this week, right? But then again, like sex isn't always connected sex, right? So sometimes it could be that sort of like quickie type of thing, or it could be that, hey, you know, that was unbelievable the other night type of thing. Like I wanted more of those unbelievable the other nights.
Yep.
And we still chase that to this day. And there's still, like, I'm telling you this right now, like this year was the first year we found a therapist, like, and we do couples therapy once a week, that really has helped change our marriage.
How?
I think that for us, it was our ability to see our triggers in each other.
Yeah.
And it all has to do with like who it reminds you of. So for me, when my wife starts to like, there's no wife that wants to be a nag, right?
Sure.
But when she says certain things, it triggers me in my memory, my mother nagging at my father, because I shared this with you before. My dad worked his nutsack off, right? So naturally, like a guy that works all the time, probably sedated with work, right? He would stay there longer than he had to, just because he was terrified to come home. Because when he came home, what was going to happen? Fucking naggy, you didn't do this, you knew that, you got to spend more time with this. So when I start to hear that, it triggers this like response in me that like I feel it here.
And you realize it's not Kendra.
And guess where this comes out? Right here, saying the dumbest shit I possibly could say that I regret immediately. And then we start fighting, and then we're in the war. And then we look at each other the next day, and we're like, what the fuck were we fighting about? And we're like, I don't know.
Don't even remember, really.
Yeah, it's like, anyway.
It's like being drunk.
Yeah, so it's my ability to recognize this and her to recognize in me when I think she's Italian and Lithuanian. She had an Italian grandfather that was loud and yelled. He had hearing problems to boot. And I think when I would remind her of her Italian grandfather, and she just saw the way that he treated her grandmother and like her daughter, which is her mother, like it made her so upset. And she would just get, when she heard me raise my voice, then it would trigger her. And you see how we just would like collide like that. So he helped us understand I guess you called it a mirror in each other, like how we trigger each other based on our like visceral responses of how we're treating each other, which has made a huge impact. That's just one example of like some of the things that have been powerful for us.
The thing that I noticed, it's a natural progression for everyone in marriage that sticks with it, is you start out giving each other a lot of grace, and then over time, you start judging where you used to give a lot of grace. And the healing pathway that you're talking about is learning to see that person again, as you did, anew, afresh. It says in the Bible, each day is supposed to be that way. But a lot of times, and I believe this, when you find that soulmate, you know, which is a hard thing to say sometimes, especially as a guy. But when you find that perfect mirror, guess what they're going to do?
Trigger the fuck out of you every day.
That's the whole point. That's where your growth comes from.
That's right.
And when I can realize that's happening for me instead of to me, then I can start taking extreme ownership. And from that extreme ownership, I have creativity to figure out ways to make that better. Robin and I have this thing, and we don't always get it right, but if we're really in triggered moments, it's called turning the lamp over. You literally turn the lamp over. We're not going to talk until that lamp's standing back up. We don't always get it right. But those things are really important keys. And I think everybody that's committed in a relationship should not see going to therapy, couples therapy, as a weakness. It's no different than we're talking about like two guys finding out, like, you did that too?
Yeah, it's been big for us. It's made, I mean, as much as we've grown since we started to become really truthful and honest, and my wife's starting to tell me actually what she wants, which is very difficult for her, for women in general, I feel. I mean, it just opens up conversations, Chris, that you don't otherwise have with each other, that make massive differences on how you perceive each other, how you treat each other.
Well, it gives you an opportunity as a man and a strong alpha man to actually be tender with your wife, because you now, like, the hardest thing for me for many years was I'm willing to do anything for Robin.
100%. Yeah.
But I'm not going to do 8 things to figure out the one thing, because every time you don't like the one thing I just did, I get more and more pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I also realized that using this like, I'm 220 pounds. Mm-hmm. Robin's 110 wet.
Yeah, literally half your size. Yeah.
How much do I have to raise my voice before she's like,
yeah,
do I need to shoot you? And so I had to realize that, because I never saw myself in an argument with her as any bigger than her. Yeah. I never thought I would ever physically harm her or anything like that. But dude, if a dude was 400 pounds full of muscle screaming at me, I think I might feel a little intimidated too. And I had to learn that I'm not the little boy yelling at my mom finally, because I now have enough courage to stand up for myself. So I felt justified in that.
Right.
So, well, no, this is my softer being, and I want to keep her that way.
Right.
So that we can have those moments in bed together. Dude, there's nothing worse than having, I mean, not always, quickies are great, but there's nothing worse than not being connected to somebody while you're trying to be connected.
Yeah, it's horrible.
You can't look them in the eyes. It's almost a shameful occurrence, because you know you're not being vulnerable.
Right.
And I want more couples to feel that, because either people stayed in marriages that were not so great for one another, or they've gone through many where they just can't figure that cycle out. And it doesn't just damage those two people. Mm-hmm. It's not only the damage to the lineage that you leave behind you, it's a whole community of people that get to experience that.
100%, yes.
And if we're going to be healers, and I'm certainly not on the level that you are, but if we're going to be healers, how we do anything is how we do everything. Right. And it would be horrible for me to figure out 3 of these categories and leave this one unattended. That would make me feel like I didn't fulfill my purpose in life. And that's what drives me to be willing to lay my ego down, because what I've also realized, the higher I go, the harder it becomes to see the thing and so I need the feedback. I need a friend that can look me in the eyes and tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear.
Right.
And that was what we were talking about before we got on the show. It's like finding a community of people that you trust that don't tell you what to do. Dude, all of us aren't like, why do you think I'm an entrepreneur? Because I don't want anybody telling me what to do. But that I respect you enough to say, I'll go meditate on that a while.
Right.
Then we can start running together.
Right.
Did you have your daughter no, you had you're still in the process, because you said it was last year. Have you seen the benefit in your daughter? Because she's only 3.5, right?
Right. So part of the reason we sought out actual therapy was that when we were fighting a lot of times in front of her. And like that was it was awful for me, because that's what I observed in my parents my whole life.
Yeah.
And like, obviously my wife doesn't want us fighting in front of our daughter, right?
Sure.
And so for what I realize is, like, my wife just wants safety and security. Most wives do, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, us as guys, like, we mistake that as like, oh, you want to feel safe, like you want money and physical protection. I'm like this big strong dude, and we make pretty good money. I'm a good provider. But all the meanwhile, and you hear like, I just don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then immediately you go into making her not feel safe.
Yeah.
And she would use words like, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Like, I don't feel safe. I'm like, it would make me so angry. And I realized it's like, the reason that she feels that way is because of the way you're expressing yourself right now, right? Because she doesn't feel safe in order for her to share her feelings and for her to tell you what is going on in her heart, because of the way you're being reactive. So the reactivity was causing a lot of fights and battles because of like the interactions we were having, being each other's mirrors. But then I would come home sometimes from work, just like with my armor on and blood all over me, and like ready to just come home and just relax. And then I get home and there's like fucking mess everywhere and chaos. And I'm like still in like, I'm still at war, and I go to war with my family. I'm like, this is the last, like, I need to take off that armor, like take off, clean up and just be ready to switch gears. So those are some of the big lessons I learned in like how to switch gears, how to make my wife feel safe, and how to allow my daughter to observe a marriage that's healthy and like mom and dad that love each other and like a healthy household, right? Because that's something I don't know what that looks like. I've never fucking seen it. Like that's nothing that I ever observed growing up, right? So, and you just repeat the patterns of history, right? Unless you're willing to like just put your ego to rest and just like accept, like you're saying, like you have other people to tell you like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Like, are you willing to receive that? Like, you're the problem. Go figure. Once again, it's just all about surrendering to that ego and to that ownership.
Yep.
Right. It's like I said, it all comes down to that for everybody, personal responsibility.
There are, to speak to something that might help people, there are two things that I've learned. Number one, have you ever heard of the story of the man that touched the tree before he went home every day?
No.
So he was growing a tree just outside of his house. And what he would do is he would come home, and before he walked in the front door, he would grab a branch on the tree and he would release everything that he had done all day into that tree. And as he walked in, he was a completely different man. So we as guys like to have those triggers. Like, give me the SOPs. I will follow them exactly. I don't want to think. I just want to do. So first, it's getting rid of it. That has been the number one reason that I create problems in home, is that I bring my problem and I haven't resolved it. And energetically, I'm observing the kids and Robin act away that is that problem. I'm just projecting. Number two, the advice I was given by one of my mentors is guys need about 20 minutes when they get home to just do nothing. Don't clean up. Don't immediately do the dishwasher. Don't immediately start making dinner. Take 20 minutes for yourself to get it all out. Play your game on your iPad, read your book, sit out and stare at a tree for a few minutes, and then come and be really engaged with your family for that evening. And I found those two things, when I do them, it works every time. And when I miss either one of them, it'll show up sometime that night. Because, dude, during the day while we're working, we're giving, and we have this projection and money and we're all these responsibilities. And the most horrible thing is we're doing most of it for these people that we say we love. And then we don't even spend time with them because we're in our own heads the entire time.
You go home and breathe fire on them, right?
And then the regret sinks in, and there's all sorts of bad habits that can occur from that. And here's what's even shittier. It's easy when those bad habits are drugs, alcohol, anger, whatever. It's not when it becomes, oh, I'm going to create another schedule for me to not be home for another 6 months. Or I'm going to go work out incessantly, or I'm going to use my passive aggressiveness to not talk to you, or to lean over in bed. And yes, we can sleep together, but you'll definitely know I'm not connected. Women are such delicate creatures. They have the ability to feel that without any words being said. And it creates the same nagging issues. What I always understood, and what I gave myself the knot at the end of the rope, as long as she's bitching, she still loves me. It's when she stops talking that I'm in a lot of trouble.
That's true.
I'm really pumped that you did this. And this doesn't mean that people that have kids that are older can't have this, but they say between the ages of 7 and 10, children are pretty much locked in. Most adults walking around are walking 7-year-olds.
100%. I am.
Yeah, me too. Your little girl has an opportunity to see something completely different, and it just means she has less of those kinds of demons to overcome later in her life. That's a beautiful gift to give. I mean, you brought her here.
Right.
So,
that's kind of what punched me in the face, was that realization. What's
the plan? What's the goal? What are you doing now? These other business things that you put out there. Didn't mean to abruptly adjust. It's just, it's to me, it's a good segue, because through this, you gave yourself some time to have some downloads from God. Now, one thing I want to ask, and I want to end on it, is I want to circle back to your relationship with God and how that really began. That's mega cool story. But long story short, you got a download from God that you needed to start something different.
Yes.
What is it?
So I think I've had this feeling that I wanted to do something bigger than something other than what's in my four walls, my brick and mortar business, right? So I've just wanted to always, I just always said this, like, I want to live a big life. I want to live a rich life, not just in money, but in just like experiences,
memories,
and everything. So, and I just for a while now, I've seen past my four walls, and when I get there, I'm still fulfilled and happy, but I know that there's more for me. More people that I can impact, larger, like I want to create a movement, right? I just see what I have in my business. Like I've created this nice thing in my community that has delivered great experiences and results. And I just want to do something that transcends that, that brick and mortar time for money type of, business, you could call it. Right? Yeah. So what I've started to think about and dream about is something that is, an experience that I can deliver to people, that I can give to them online, elsewhere in the country, or within my business and whatnot.
Okay.
So what you're referring to, that download from God, was something that came to me I think it was 2021, because it was 2022. I was just out with my dog, and to be honest with you, I had done some microdosing of some mushrooms that day. It was a weekend, and it was kind of a beautiful day. And I just remember just surrendering to God, just be like, not that I knew it was God, but I was just like, what do I do? What's my next move? What do I have to do? And I just got this download of what I needed to create. And it was called the Weaponized Body. It was something that came to me. It was like, create this program that teaches people not just how to change their life from a metabolic and a movement standpoint, which is like, how you eat and move, but also how you think, right? Metabolic, movement, and mindset. And create this experience and build from that. And I sort of got that download of that terminology and that framework. Like it was just a framework that downloaded. It's hard to explain, but immediately I remember going home and just.
But it started a firing, like the download created this feeling of the same thing that made you a chiropractor. Like you just know.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And I scribbled it all down. I told my wife, and I was like, I'm doing this. So, and it, like, that's never died. It's just because I've had other ideas in the past and they just kind of died.
Yeah.
This one is like here to stay, and it's grown into a place where like I'm doing it. So I have, one-on-one and group coaching. And then I've started another arm of it, which is a hormone optimization program that I use, that I have patients as well as people in the Weaponized Body experiencing and exploring if they're candidates, right? So, because I do a lot of functional blood chemistry, a lot of objective data analysis with people in my office, I give them an actual assessment of where they are with their health, if they're interested in like performance health recovery, because we're not like there just to see if you're not sick, right? Because that's what everyone's used to. They're like, hey, let's do this like preventative or this treatment model stuff. It's like, no. We're doing, third tier healthcare stuff, which is promotion, right? It's like, where are you at and where do you want to go? And can I help you get there, right? So I have, the brick and mortar facility, if you're local, with the chiropractic, we have tissue regenerative technologies, corrective exercises, multiple doctors. And then this online or virtual experience, this is a way for us to help you with the coaching, with your nutrition, your exercise programming, as well as the mindset stuff. Because most people, they know, right? It's like what they need to do, right? It's like, you need to move your body and eat better, right? Most people understand conceptually what that is. It's like, why the fuck aren't you doing it? Right? It does come down to like mindset and accountability, which is what that program offers. And then the Weaponized Wellness piece, which is the hormone optimization, is really based on objective blood work. How can we help you optimize your hormones, whether it's naturally, or we have other interventions like TRT, peptides, and other.
It changed Robin and I's lives when we did it.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, I mean, we just turned 50.
Yep.
It's going to happen.
Sure.
And I remember talking to my chiropractor, and he was like, "Oh, hold on, let's do a test." We did the test. He's like, "Yeah, you're down to 300. We need to get you up."
Yeah.
But the other thing was, so now I'm jacked. I'm ready to go.
There you go.
And Robin's like,
what about me?
and he explained very candidly, for women also needing TRT.
Oh yeah.
It changed everything.
Sure.
We're 35 again.
Nice.
And it just keeps going on. There's tiers, concierge levels of tiers that keep going on. I so believe in what you're doing, because it's when you work with somebody that does care, when you work with somebody that does know what the hell they're doing, these are simplistic things that you can do to make your life almost instantaneously better.
Right.
The cool thing is because you're such a disciplined person and you're offering these other parts, that's the accountability piece that really helps if people really want the results.
Agree. Yeah,
I mean, dude, I'm glad you're local.
I
I'm
appreciate
glad
that,
you're
yeah.
local. I'd like to see you more. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah. So, I mean, my brick and mortar office is called Innate Wellness Center. It's in North Andover, Massachusetts. in8wc.com. You can go right on there, read about it. Schedule a consult if you're local. So online stuff. So theweaponizedbody.com
Mhm.
or weaponizedwellness.com. Those are two other ways you can see what I'm up to. Follow me on Instagram, Weaponized Dad.
Mhm.
It's the handle. Yeah, and then you can, I don't know if you do show notes or whatever. You can throw my email.
Yeah, we're gonna put all this.
Yeah, you can throw my email in there, all that stuff. So
Okay,
it's all good.
we'll get it there, man. Well, I want to have you back.
Yeah, I'd love to be back.
Talk about some more stuff. I appreciate you taking the hour to drive here.
Yeah, of course. This is fun.
And everybody doesn't know this, but we're recording on a Saturday just because we're both busy dudes. But I'm really grateful for the conversation, man. I'm grateful for the mission that you're on, the willingness for you not to just attack your physical body, and maybe your mental as well, but you decided that there was one last place that you needed to have fulfillment in, not even with family of origin or family of choice, but your spiritual life.
Yeah.
Do you mind ending this show with
I'd love to, yeah.
your testimonial of how you personally met God?
Yeah, I thought about this the other day. When I was 12 years old, I didn't grow up in a religious home. Like, I didn't have a negative opinion about religion, nor did I have anything that was like positive until I thought about this. I actually went to a Bible camp when I was 12 because a friend of mine went there. And I just tagged along with him. And I remember it was great. Like, I had a great experience, and we went to chapel every day. And this is kind of weird. I'm like, chapel, whatever. I don't know anything about this. But I remember he was the guy that was like our counselor. Like, each house had a counselor. And then like our house had a counselor. He was a cop in Winnipeg. And I remember him, like, at one point in the week of the camp, you had an opportunity to give your heart to Jesus Christ. And I remember like having that opportunity and making the decision to do it with my friend and this counselor. And we were the only ones in our house that did it. And I remember being 12 and we're bawling and everything. I mean, I don't know what the fuck I'm crying about. And I forgot all about that. And I thought about this the other day. So that was truly the first time I gave my heart to Jesus Christ. But like I had alluded to before, I just led my life by force all the way up until like really 2018. But even then, like, not really taking a knee until my wife and I both got baptized. And this happened last year.
Okay.
My wife had started to go to a church that was near us called Netcast. It's an unbelievable, like, I guess you could call it progressive church.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know, it's like, it's in a mall, dude. It's like, it's
really,
like, yeah. It's
okay.
But it's like a theater type of atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's
good
got
music.
a stage and good music.
Yeah.
And I remember I had gone about 3 or 4 times, and then it was like baptism Sunday. I'm like, okay. And then we're standing there watching people get baptized. And my wife looks at me, she's like, I'm gonna go do it. I'm like, and I started to get like all like clammy and it felt weird. I was like, really? I was like, okay. So she went, and I stood there for a long time. And I remember just trying to surrender to the answer of what I should do. Whether it was like, stay here and don't do it, or join her. And I waited until like there was nobody else, man. There was like she was at the end of the line and there was nobody else. And I was like, I finally got the answer. It was just like, you better do this.
Go.
It's like screaming at me. So I went back there. They're like, oh my God, you got to hurry up. And they give me like a t-shirt and all this stuff. And they're like, and the guy tried to like talk to me in the back. He's like, why are you doing this? What's your email? I'm like, he's like, well, fine, just go. So, and then I went, and I remember the pastor, who's like my age, is this young guy. And he's asking me, he's like, what are you feeling right now? I was just like, getting teared up and whatever. I was like, I just feel relieved. He's like, well, what do you like? Why do you feel relieved? I was like, I feel like I'm just getting off the fence. Right. So it's just like, I'm just ready. And I just remember like, that was the day I was just like, I'm just ready to just take a knee and just surrender, whatever that feels like. I still don't really know exactly what that means, but I know conceptually in my heart, it's like, you're going to be okay. Right. It's like, there's a plan for your life. Everything's happened for a reason. Like, don't don't try to make things happen if it's not in the cards for you and your heart doesn't tell you that that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Force versus power.
Yeah. So just since then, really, and my wife and I, since then have been on a spiritual journey together, and there's just like, it's overwhelming, man. There's so much to learn. I'm just
Oh my God.
I'm so green. I'm such a rookie. Like I don't know anything, but yeah, it's fun. It's like, it's a whole new opportunity for me to just start studying scripture and writing my own scripture and like just deepening my experience of life from a new lens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very much so.
Mm.
Very, very much so. And there's nothing to me, I'm speaking from a guy because I can only look from a guy's perspective, but there's nothing more powerful to me than witnessing a man submit his life to a power higher than himself.
Mm.
That takes more courage.
Mm.
Even if it happens and you don't understand what you're doing,
Right.
It takes more courage to do that one thing. And when you come in my office, it's the quote by Teddy Roosevelt about the man in the arena. And that speaks to my heart. And that's what I think a warrior is. It's not whether you win or whether you lose, that you gave yourself the opportunity to win or to lose, and you spent it all on the battlefield. And a real warrior understands that if I'm good in 3 departments, but there are 4, that I have to go look at this one too.
That's right.
Regardless.
That's right.
And I'm really proud of you, dude. And I'm really grateful that you shared that story, because there are a lot of people out there that they're still in a position where they're letting the fear keep them from the unknown. And the beautiful thing is, dude, is the unknown is all that we have. And just surrender to it. And I promise you, I'm not trying to tell people who their higher power should be. That's not for me.
Right.
But I know for me, it's my whole life is based upon my relationship with God first. It's made me a better man.
Yep.
And I'm literally listening to you tell me how it's making you a better man too.
Yeah, 100%.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. We'll do it again. See you, everybody.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey, friend. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.